Hello, if you don't know me, my name is Chris Pittman and I get to lead worship here and work with media things at First Baptist Harrison. And we are trying to get stories out about what God is doing in the lives of the people in His church. With me today is Ralph Gene Hudson, and he's got a story of a testimony that he had just unexpected, wanting his heart to be ready to listen and act with what the Lord had in mind. And so he's going to tell us about it today.
Usually when you get on a phone call with tech support, by the time you get finished, you're ready to pull your hair out and throw your phone in the garbage.
Not normally where you might be looking for a testimony. Yeah. What was the tech support for? What device? Phone, computer, washer, dryer?
Actually, for a smartwatch.
Smartwatch, okay, there we go.
Yep.
Got to get the whole picture.
We talked back and forth 30, 40 minutes. He put me on hold for a while to go check something, talk to someone, and came back, and the Lord just impressed me to ask him, talk to him something about the Lord. First of all, what's your name? He said, Raphael.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool because that's Ralph in Spanish.
That's cool.
I said, if you were to die today and you were standing at the gates of heaven and they should say, why should I let you in? What would your answer be? And he said, well, I try to live a good life. I'm kind to people and try to help people.
Yeah.
And I said, that's very obvious from our phone call, and that's fantastic. You do have those qualities. I said, that's not going to get you into heaven, though. So I started sharing with him the plan of salvation, going over scriptures with him, gave him my testimony. We were on the phone for another 30 or 45 minutes. Finally, we got to the part where I asked him, if you understand these scriptures and God's speaking to your heart, I said, you can just pray, this simple prayer. I said, can I pray with you? And he said, yes.
No way.
Yeah. So he prayed to accept the Lord, and he said, that's the last thing I expected on a phone call. And I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was just a plain old tech support call. And thankfully, was in tune enough with the Lord that I actually picked up on that. And
yeah. Lots of people would say, tried to be a good person, tried to do the right thing, tried to do more right things than wrong things. Mm-hmm. Kind of a balance sheet. That's a very common, I think, human nature feeling.
It is very common.
And the Lord pressed upon you to tell him what God says about it, what the Creator says.
And then I gave him my personal testimony, not just when I was saved, but what's happened since then, and things when the Lord's actually intervened in my life and changed things. Mm-hmm. and how He's led me, and that was the biggest blessing I've had in years. It was wonderful.
Oh man, and you felt the Lord say, hey, start a conversation about me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're not responsible for what the response is going to be, but we are responsible for being in tune with the Lord enough, if He says, speak to this person, that we do it.
And you got the biggest blessing in years.
Oh goodness, yes.
From that interchange.
And the same thing has happened recently too.
Oh yeah?
With a lady I've sold property back and forth, helped her for years. So I went by to see her. We talked about all the business stuff. Mm-hmm. And the Lord impressed me to talk to her. So I started visiting with her. Mm-hmm. I told her about the prayer, and I gave her my testimony, and she goes, let me think about it. Mm-hmm. So I went back to see her yesterday. I said, have you thought about it? I said, so are you ready to pray that prayer? And she goes, not quite, but she goes, I think I'm getting there.
Well, man.
So hopefully the Lord will lead her at that point.
Yeah. Wow. Well, praise God for that. Praise God for both of those. And one of my favorite parts about this is your statement of you received the greatest blessing from this obedience in years. Yeah. That's very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that every time you speak to someone that the Lord's going to expect you to present the plan of salvation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if we're listening to Him, someone else has already planted the seed, tilled the soil. Sometimes we get to do that. Sometimes we get to actually be there for the harvest.
Yeah.
And on the first guy, it's obvious the Lord had been working on his heart anyway, because he was ready. And this lady I'm talking about right now, she's getting ready. I think she'll be there.
Well, thanks for sharing these. I was expecting one story. Thanks for sharing both these stories. And do you know how the watch turned out? Did it work, or does it not even matter because it's all?
It wouldn't have mattered, but a couple of days later, the glitch was, they had taken care of it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter if it had it or not. The phone call was worth the hour and a half that I was on the phone.
And quite a testimony for maybe second to commenting on posts on the internet. Behavior on tech support calls might be the second worst display of humanity that's out there. Well, thanks for sharing those stories with me and for taking the time to share it with everybody else.
You're welcome.
That's so cool. I didn't know about that second one.